that growth mindset is really a key element of F1 team culture. So I would say Formula One teams are quite unique, I think, in the world of sport, because behind the athlete, or the race drivers in our case, you effectively have a high precision engineering company with all the same departments and functions that you would expect to see in any other company. So you have R&D, manufacturing, design, operations, comms, marketing, finance, all of those, HR, you name it. And the leadership team are pretty much facing the same challenges and situations as any other organisation outside the sport. And as in any other company, their role is really very much to kind of establish that clear mission and vision for the team, and then build a culture and build the facilities that the team is going to need to achieve those goals. The big difference with the Formula One team is that underpinning all of that engineering and that corporate culture, there's a race team. And so we very much apply a sporting approach to managing the challenges that we're going to face as an organisation. And we have to build a team where everyone is working together to achieve our goals. So in terms of our leadership principles, I always say, and I'm probably biased because of my role, but communication is the key. Every single person in the team needs to be pulling in the same direction. They need to know what's happening around the organisation. They need to know what's expected of them. And so within Mercedes, the approach was very much to lead through intent, which is to set a very clear set of goals at the start of every year, and then create a very clearly articulated strategic intent that sets out how the team is going to work together to achieve those goals. And that intent is distilled down into a really simple statement of intent, which is effectively a couple of paragraphs in written text, just that explain what the team is aiming to achieve in the coming year. And that gets communicated to every single team member. It gets woven through all the company communications across the year. And it forms a really compelling call to action to everybody. Each department head can look at the team intent and work out what their department needs to do to achieve it. Every single individual can look at the team intent and see what they then personally need to do to achieve it. And I know how I'm going to achieve it, in my particular role. So it just creates that really clear line of sight for every team member across the organisation, and also builds that sense of ownership and responsibility to everybody in the organisation so that they can all work together. The secret is there's no secret. I mean, as I say, there's no silver bullet or special sauce. We all know F1's a huge challenge. It's one of the most difficult sports to succeed in. The margins between success and failure on the track are tiny. It's thousandths of a second sometimes, which can be less than a metre in distance on the racetrack after a 5-kilometre lap. And the teams have to be incredibly resilient to be able to maintain peak performance right across the season, across 24 races worldwide in a period spanning from March through to December. They have to design and build a brand new race car every year. They work literally around the clock in a factory that very, very rarely stops operating. They have to constantly adapt and innovate. They have to work around new regulations, changes within the sport itself, competitor developments, race track changes, weather conditions, everything in Formula One that can possibly change will change. And you have to be prepared for that. So again, it comes back down to building that really strong, cohesive team culture that can sustain people and keep them going and enable them to respond really rapidly to those changes. And one of the key things that we do in Formula One to achieve that is to use the challenges to make the team stronger. So it's learning from failure, and it's building a growth mindset. And that growth mindset is really a key element of F1 team culture. Our late chairman from Mercedes, Niki Lauda, always used to say that each day we fail is a day for our rivals to regret, because that's when we come back stronger to beat them again. And that's enshrined in the ethos of the Mercedes team. You know, you need to look really closely at everything you do and work out how you can do it 1% better next time. You need to be able to admit when you've made a mistake or you don't know something, and hold your hand up. You need to be able to bring your ideas for improvements and feel comfortable to challenge when you see something that isn't being done well. And for that to happen, you have to build a culture of candor within the team. You have to have a culture where people feel empowered to speak up, to raise the inconvenient truths if needed, and to trust that there won't be negative repercussions for them when they do. Because if you don't have that, if you're not hearing those employee voices, you can miss those vital opportunities to improve your performance. And we know as a human species, it's not in our nature necessarily to speak up. So there's a challenge there. We've been conditioned over thousands of years of evolution not to rock the boat or, you know, disrupt the status quo. We're kind of brought up to respect those in authority, to try not to get ourselves kicked out of the tribe, as it were, for being a troublemaker. So we quite often don't speak up. We kind of wait, we sit back and wait to see if someone else does, or we just keep quiet. And in those situations, problems just go unsolved and innovations don't get heard. So we really need to create that situation where people are comfortable with speaking up. And again, trust and good communication are at the very core of that. So good communication starts at the top, and leaders need to lead by example. And there are some really key elements, I think, that can be put in place for communication to be effective. So going back to what I mentioned earlier, having that strategic narrative that aligns with the company's mission, vision and values. Companies often go to quite a lot of effort to define what their purpose is, who they are, what their mission is, what they stand for, how they should be operating. And then they fail to communicate that to the staff very well. So employees see a set of values written up on a wall somewhere, or maybe they're given a list of behaviours in their annual development review, and that's about it. Having a strategic narrative is a way to bring all of those elements to life and weave them through all of your internal communication, and ensure that everything is embedded across all of your communication touch points, because that's how you create that clear line of sight for everyone to your organization's goals. You need to remind people every so often what it is that they need to be focusing on. And then the other thing I always say is that it's important for communication to be what I call hot, which is honest, open and timely. Your employees are your number one stakeholders, and their levels of engagement will affect everything from your productivity, your products, your customer satisfaction, effectively your bottom line. So employees also need to be your number one audience for communication. They should know everything that's going on within your company. They should know the news before it goes out anywhere externally. They should trust that what they're being told by the leadership is true, and they should be comfortable that nothing's being hidden from them or covered up. And then leaders also need to make that time to listen to employees as well. So having those regular opportunities for feedback, for people to ask questions or kind of share their ideas, enables people to feel like, again, that they're participating within the direction of the organization. And then finally, I would say the best leaders I've ever worked with are really visible. They walked the floor, they connected informally with employees whenever possible. So James Allison, for example, the technical director at Mercedes, always makes a point of sitting with different team members for lunch every day. So he goes down to the staff restaurant, finds somebody he's never met before and goes and sits and has lunch with them and gets to know them, and they get to know him. Leaders who use personal stories, who talk about themselves, are also able to take people on the journey with them. So Toto Wolff, I think, is a master at that, and he often talks about lessons that he's learnt in life or personal situations that he's been in. And it really does enable them to come across as a relatable human being and for people to connect better with them.